Blackstone needs no introduction in India. It is one of the earliest entrants in the Indian private equity space, and I have with me the co-founder of Blackstone and the chairman, Stephen Schwarzman. Mr. Schwarzman, thank you very much for your time here in Davos. How would you characterize the year 2013, and therefore whether you're hopeful of a global recovery in 2014?
2013 was actually pretty good. Markets exceeded reality, but the stock markets in America, for example, were up 32%, which is a stunning amount. Stock markets even in Europe were up quite strongly, and in Asia that wasn't quite the case. And so the emerging markets did not particularly share in the kind of recovery overall. The way I look at 2014, there ought to be a further acceleration of growth in the United States, probably in the 3% type of area, plus or minus a little bit. And the emerging markets have more or less hit bottom and will start coming up. China will remain in the 7s in terms of growth. The Middle East, in terms of the healthy countries there, will grow pretty rapidly. Europe will slowly recover. They'll show a little growth, but off of a very low base. So the euro will still exist, and so we've moved one step further past the financial crisis.
I want to bring India to your attention, but before I do that, 2013 was also the year of exits, finally, for private equity, given where the equity markets were. What does that mean for 2014, fresh money coming back to being invested in the various businesses that Blackstone traditionally does?
Well, I think generally there'll be more money put into private equity funds because institutions' overall portfolios have gotten larger. And they usually have a fixed percentage that goes into private equity. So it'll get bigger for that reason. Secondly, they're increasing their allocation to private equity, so it'll get bigger for that reason. And third, for companies like ours, they're allocating more money to the largest firms who can invest more money and get good results with safety. And so our market share is going up. So it ought to be quite a good time on the fundraising level. And every market in the world has a different type of goodness in terms of how much money we want to put in that particular area.
Is there a figure that you can put into how much or what is the kind of increase you're looking at the total assets under management for the private equity industry this year, given what you've just told us? And the second part of that question is, how does that assessment get impacted by what's going on with the Fed and the taper?
I think I'll take the second part first. That the Fed and the tapering, people get really excited about this for a reason I don't quite understand. The Fed's turned out to be very smart, and they've done things very gradually, and I would anticipate they will continue to do things gradually and not slow down the U.S. economy on any substantial basis. As to how big the private equity industry will get in absolute terms, that's not an area where I keep statistics.
Okay, sure.
I can just tell you directionally what will be happening.
All right. You've laid out where you see some of the opportunity in this world, and I think companies in India are wondering whether they now have to compete not just with other emerging markets or their peer group, but also the U.S. or a recovering Europe, given the kind of strength we're seeing come back to the developed world. What would your take be on the investment outlook towards India, given the global context?
Well, I don't know that India is competing with Europe per se, or whether it's competing with the U.S.
Okay.
India is competing with itself, and India's made it a lot more difficult to invest in India because the Indians have more or less lost confidence in their own country, and there's been a real change over the last 3 to 5 years. Some of it were tax issues. Some of it was lack of reforms. Some of it was devolvement of power to the states instead of to the central government. And there seems to, outsiders at least, some sense of pause in the whole country as they're waiting for the next election. And there are a variety of scenarios about India. If you get a new government that is reformist and energetic, Indian growth can pick up again, and it could be really a good thing. If India stays in this current muddle, then outsiders will look at it and not be sure what to do. When the host country, India, is unsure of its own situation, it's very difficult for outsiders to have a high level of confidence as well. We're quite active in India.
Yes.
We own a lot of companies there, and we're a big supporter of India. So we would like the Indians to recover their confidence that they had for quite a long time and relaunch. That may be possible, and we hope it is.
You've invested, or rather Blackstone has invested approximately 1.7 billion, I'm told, in India in the 8 years that it's been present there, roughly about 20 companies. Is that number representative of the opportunity that India holds out? So in other words, I'm asking whether India has pushed your money away. You'd much rather have invested a larger amounts of money, except that the opportunities were not available or the policies were not friendly.
No, actually we put in $3 billion.
$3 billion?
Yes,
Oh, I'm sorry, so I stand corrected.
Because, no, you were giving the right number for private equity, but we
The debt
also
side.
have invested in real estate,
Okay.
over $1 billion.
Yes, right.
And the issue with India is India needs capital. India needs foreign direct investment. Its capital markets are not developed enough to satisfy the needs for growth in India. So they need, whether it's people like ourselves or other people, they need that money coming in. So there's never a shortage of opportunities in India that are good opportunities. The issue is, how is the country going to do? The individual companies are often interesting, but if the currency goes down 30%,
yes.
you basically are relatively crushed in terms of return, so it makes a lot of the hard work you did go away. Now, currencies go up and currencies go down. So as the country gets better, currency may well strengthen, economic growth will pick up, and there will be a very good scenario. So India is right at a point of uncertainty, and it's going to break one or two ways, and we're hopeful that India relaunches itself, because it's good for the Indian people. Leave people like us aside. It's good for the Indian people to have more growth, more jobs, more wealth. And so we hope the people in India will go forward and do that.
Absolutely. You've had some management changes at Blackstone India, and Akhil Gupta has now moved, I think, into a non-executive role, a less hands-off role. I'm just curious, is that in any way linked to some of the investments that were made in the early days when Blackstone entered India that looked very promising? The same issue that you pointed out, there are a lot of opportunities, but policy has turned them sour, power being the biggest example. Blackstone took big bets on power, and unfortunately, because of the policy environment, those haven't worked out as yet. Real estate is also very risky in this country because there are environmental clearances, etc., to surmount. These are risky bets.
Well, I'd say, first of all, the change didn't have anything to do with that.
Okay.
Secondly, none of the power projects are completed yet, so we think they're going to work out.
Okay.
Because India needs power, and some of the plants are very close to that, and that should be a good thing. And what was the third part of your question?
Real estate.
Oh, real estate. Geez.
You have some 28 million square feet of office space that you...
We're very optimistic on our real estate investments in India. They've been very well done, and we're in wonderful locations. We have filled buildings. The tenants, the people who are paying rent, many of them are the greatest global companies in the world, so we anticipate no problems. We'll be continuing to invest money in India, certainly in the real estate area, as well as continuing in the private equity area. So we're not, sort of in the negative business. And Akhil Gupta had been working for us very productively and happily for a lot of years, and you get to be a certain age, and you would not know that because you're
Soon
a
enough.
really young person.
Soon enough.
That when people basically would like to do something a little different with their lives, which is, this is not the complete low stress kind of way to make a living.
Yeah, fair enough. $3 billion in India. If we had got our policy environment right, could that have been 6 or 9 or 12?
In terms of growth rate?
No, in terms of the investment you would have allocated to Indian business.
Yeah, well, there's only a certain amount that you want to do. We could have been higher than we were because what would happen is we would be selling more things and then replacing those. It's very hard to do that in an environment where the country basically goes illiquid. And so, we're running all the companies that we've invested in, the vast majority of them quite happily, and we'll wait to realize on some of these when the time is right.
Mr. Schwarzman, I recall the last time you spoke to us, which was about 3 or 4 years ago here in Davos, you mentioned corruption as one big key issue that foreign investors have to deal with. Have those fears worsened, heightened, because of all the scandals and the scams that have broken out in India?
I don't think they've changed. In terms of the ratings of countries around the world, I think it's somewhere between 160 and 170 in terms of doing business. Yeah. I think India, China, and Mexico, all major economies, major countries, are within 10 points of each other. So all I can say is that's a long way from Switzerland, which is #1 in the world.
And where we are right now. If I was to ask you what looks most interesting in terms of investment opportunities for 2014, whether they're countries, new emerging markets, or business areas, what would be on your list?
Well, there's a lot of different areas. There's real estate generally in Asia, as well as in Europe. There's energy and natural resources in almost all over the world, all over the energy chain. So we see a lot of interesting opportunity. I'm going to have to run.
Okay, all right.
All right.
I'm going to thank you then for your time.
Much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
And thanks for speaking with us.
Right, nice to see you.
Can I just take my mic back?